Shalom, shalom, Israel, shalom. His brother Raya, I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, by Hashem Mashiach, Malak Yahushua. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers going out there on the highways and byways, making their body living sacrifice. In the rain, the tumults, the demons, the uprises, the uproars, they're out there standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty brothers that are not out there as of yet, but they're building themselves up, reading, praying, fasting, doing everything they can do to put themselves in a position to shake the hand and wake up the hopeful elect. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf in this thing, sincerely reverencing their husbands, being teachers of good things to the children at home, while being quiet, shamefaced, submissive, loving, steadfast, cooking, sewing, cleaning, doing all of the righteous acts for our foremothers on fire for the Lord. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty Akwaf that are not married as of yet, but building themselves up, doing everything they can do to magnify the Most High, His beloved Son, and help the ministry. Another strong shalom to all of the mighty, zealous children, right in His truth, abstaining from all lust, concupiscence, and pit pressure, standing 10 toes down for the name of the Lord. And last but not least, another strong shalom to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, right, reading, praying, fasting, magnifying the Most High and His beloved Son, Yahweh Shah. But this is going to be an in-depth breakdown, right, on the Hasmonean, right, and Seleucid empire and dynasty. I know when you're reading the Maccabees, you want to be in the spirit, but you also want to understand, right? You don't want to read these accounts, and the only thing you're really thinking about is how Judas Maccabees killed people, man. Strangled them out, light them on fire. Yeah, that was mighty, that was strong, but you also have to understand timelines, dates, kings, empires, why these things were going on, the politics behind closed doors, who ruled and why they ruled, who were these men that fight for power in the empire, and all things that really dive into the history aspect and the spirit behind it, right? We're not going to waste no time. We're going to dive straight into it, right? Through the power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah. But I'm going to share my screen. All right, give me a strong con if brothers can see the screen. Right, give me a strong con if brothers can see the screen, and we're going to dive straight into it. Right? Now, when you look at the word Hasmonean, right? Right, and this is from the Latin. It says a member of the Hasmonean dynasty, right? Really coming from the Greek, right? Asmoneos, right? Modern Latin, Asmoneus, right? In the English, it translates to Hasmonean. Now, actually, when you're going into it, this is a lineage of men. It's not just a dynasty. You have to understand first and foremost, this is a lineage. You have the Aaronic priesthood. You understand? You got the house of David. You got certain things and empires and people and lineages of people that you have to go off of, the same as the Hasmonean dynasty. These are a dynasty of men ruled from Mattathias' grandfather. Now, I want to dive into this. Now, you have Onias, right, which was a priest. You have Onias the third. You have Onias the first, the second, and the third. Now, Onias is in the Bible, and he's very important as a priest. When you dive into the history, right, really diving into it of his lineage and his forefathers. Before I touch on that, I want to dive into this quick point. Let's pull up this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of First Maccabees. Because a lot of brothers, this may be your first feast of dedication. You don't know who Judas Maccabees is. You don't know who Eleazar is. You don't know who Jonathan is. You don't know who Simon is. You don't know what the word Hasmonean means. You may be fresh coming into this, or a lot of brothers just need to get brushed up through the spirit. This is the mighty book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, and verse 15. I'm going to start at 14. It says, then Mattathias and his sons rent their clothes. Now, during this time, you had the Hellenization that was going on, right? You had Antiochus the third, right, which ruled around that time, right, under the Seleucid Empire. Now, what most scholars would say and people is that he ruled with a semi-lighter hand than Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth and Antiochus Epiphanes the fifth, right? It says, then Mattathias and his sons rent their clothes. So during this time was the Hellenization period, where they were trying to transfer and make all of the Jews at this time under the ordinances of the heathen and the Greeks, and put on sackcloth and mourn very sore. So when all this was going on, the throwing down of the temple, Hellenizing of their people. When all this transpired, and while the kings and officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city of Modin to make them sacrifice. Right, Modin is a province within Judea. So they came and said, you know what, we're going to force the hand to make people to sacrifice, to bow down to Hercules and other false idols and gods during this time. And when many of Israel came unto them, Mattathias also and his sons came together. Then answered the king officers and said to Mattathias on his wives, thou art a ruler. Why is he a ruler? Because he's a priest. And they understand that lineage of great men during this time. We didn't have a king during this time. During this time, you're coming out of having governors. You're coming out of having priests. These are your chief rulers and men during this time, right? Your elders, your eldership. So Mattathias is on a high level. And these kings and these rulers, they know these things, man, these officers. And they're trying to get him as a puppet to have all of Judea to transgress the laws of the heathen. And an honorable man, it's like a great man in this city, and strengthen with sons and brethren. So you know the people supported him. Now therefore, come thou first and fulfill the king's commandment, like as all the heathen that have done. Yea, and the men of Judea also, and such as remain in Judea, so like in Jerusalem, so shall thou and thy house be in the number of the king's friends, right? Meaning what? You would get silver, you would get gold, right? You would get a seat of authority, right? They'll keep you on a nice puppet and a nice string, like a lot of men transgress, like Menetheius, right? Like all of these wicked men like Jason, Rhodicus, right? Alchemists, these men fought for the power under the heathen to overthrow their people. And I'm going to touch on that history too. But he didn't care about that, man. He stood for one thing and one thing only. That's the laws of the Most High God, man. That monotheistic mentality, only having one God, one ruler, one king, and that's Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Anything else coming against to overthrow the laws of God, right? The real men of God are not going to go for that, man. And thou and thy children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. And the true men of God don't care about riches. They don't care about women. They don't care about gold. They don't care about silver. All they truly care about is their first love. And their first love is the Most High God, manifest through his son, Yahweh Shah, that's manifest in our hearts and our spirits today. And if that's mentality and spirit is deeply rooted in you, man, you're not going to care about the things of this world either. Then Mattathias answered and spake with a loud voice. So he was zealous, he was mighty, he was strong. Though all the nation that are under the king's dominion obey thee. And keep in mind, this is the Seleucid Empire. So it's stretched during the time, right, under Alexander, the so-called Great. We had the Diodici Wars, right, the Syrian Wars, and the province that stretched over the time and parts of Judea with the Seleucid Empire, and very little parts of Ptolemy around that Egypt region. That's why they went to war. But he said, look, though all the empire under that time bow down unto you, man, submit themselves unto you, it says, and fall away every one from the religion of their fathers and give his consent to these commandments, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the covenant of our fathers. So we stood on the laws of God. He loved the Most High God, man. You have to remember too, during this time, this was life or death. And a lot of you brothers that are zealous for the Lord, a lot of you brothers that say I'll die for the Lord, it's going to come a time where all of that talk is going to be weighed in the balance, man. Everything you've said, every action, every enterprise, every mighty zealous act, every damn thing you could think of that you said is going to be weighed in the balance and tried. The Most High is a God whereby what? Actions are weighed. Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Sirach, right? Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Sirach, chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 13. It says, whoso feareth the Lord, it shall go well with him at the last, and he shall find favor in the day of his death, man. So it's going to come a time where you're going to have to die for the Lord, man, if that be your lot as a martyr. Now, it's not a glorious death in the eyes of man. You may be stripped alive. You may be beaten. May have your tongue cutting out, man. May have your shrines and your bones broken. May have a shameful death in the eyes of men, but you'll find favor in the day of your death by fearing the Most High and staying true. So when you really look at this position he put himself in for the laws of God, not only did he risk his family being killed, the nation in the uproar, his own life, but he put all that on the line for the Most High God. Let's jump down to verse 27. And Mattathias cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the law and maintaineth the covenant, let him follow me. So he also was a leader. You have to be a leader of the people, man. That's very important. To be a man of God, you have to be a leader. That doesn't mean a title that man gave you. That means the spirit that comes with being a leader, man. Enforcing the laws, standing on business, dying for the Lord, showing the people the way when there is no way, man. Climbing mountains, defeating the heathen, going to war. These are things that chief men on the earth do in the name of the Lord, man. The Lord said, who will rise up against me, against the workers of iniquity? It says, so he and his sons fled in the mountains and left all that ever they had, man. What is ever they had, man? It could have been money, shekels, silver, food, all the cheap things you have in your house, man. At a bat of a dime, you're going to have to leave those things. Those are pictures. Those are memories. Those are different things. You may have trophies, awards. You may have your grandmother's scarf she gave you. You may have all of these different things that are memorable unto you. You have to, at a drop of a dime, flee when the Most High say so, man. You may be on a run. You may be a pilgrim, man. You have to go save your wife or save your brother or somewhere. House may be burning on fire. You can't look back. What he did, he immediately rose up and fled into the mountains. What's in the mountains, man? Wild beasts, cold weathers, terrains. He could be split, roll your ankle, man, sprain your ankle. You can't have your hunting gear to get a nice, roebuck, something sweet, some venison. What did they feed on? They fed on the herbs of the field. You read about that in 2 Maccabees, the 5th chapter, man. So when they went up in those mountains, not only did they leave everything, but they left a sense of pride, man. See, man is comfortable in the situation he in, man. Right? I got a lot of notes and I'm trying to get into with the spirit. Trying to kind of fight against, try to get this out, man. I gotta let a lot be comprehended in few words, like the scriptures say, man. The zeal was eating me alive, man. It say and left all that ever they had in the city, man. And you got to really think about that. Look around your house, man, and everything in it, and even the people that may be in it. If they're not ready to accustom to the leadership and mentality and spirit that you're in to follow Yahweh in the name of his son Yahweh Shah, you will have to leave those things. And that's how men of God move in judgment. Let's go to the mighty book, right? Matter of fact, let's go on to Onias, right? Again, you have Onias the first. This is a priestly dynasty of men under the Arianic priesthood. You had Simon the first, Onias the second, son of Simon the first. Simon the second was the son of Onias the second and succeeded him as high priest. And then you have Onias the third. Now, Onias the third is spoken about in the scriptures. Let's get it. In Onias, he was righteous, man. He kept the laws of God. He did everything that there was to do to be a good example, man. You have to have good example as men in the last days, man. Because all of our fathers have let us down. All of the men that were before us, all these religious leaders, everything that they have done is hindering the work that the real men right now are doing, man. And they're tearing down the strongholds, the lies, the confusion. Let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 3 and verse number 1. Now, when the holy city was inhabited with all peace, and the laws were kept very well because of the goodliness of Onias the high priest, man. So when you have a man of authority that's righteous in authority, good things flourish, man. What about the time of Simon, man? During the time of Simon, you had righteous things flourishing. You had men speaking peaceably in the streets, people that were on fire, right? I mean, all these different things, they flourish during his time because he was a righteous man. Let's go real quick. Let me get a quick precept. Right? I mean, really, when you dive into it, so much you could really go into. But let me get this real fast. Get this quick precept. Matter of fact, let me get Sirach. That's a better precept. Stay on Onias. Let's go to Sirach 50. Right? This is the book of Sirach, chapter 50, verse 1. Simon the high priest, the son, right, of Onias, who is in his life prepared the house again, in his days fortified the temple. And by him was built from the foundation the double height and the high fortress of the wall about the temple. In his days, the cistern to receive water began to compass, as the sea was covered with plates of brass. He took care of the temple, that it should not fall. So a good man like you have Mattathias, you have Judas Maccabees, you have a good lineage, you have David, you have Solomon, you have men that have a good example. You got Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Be a father and a leader in your house, that you're bringing forth the fruits of teaching your children the right thing, the laws of God, right? And Onias did that, man. Onias was on fire. I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's going into Simon, but nevertheless, jumping back to 2 Maccabees chapter 3, it says Onias the high priest and his hatred of wickedness. So Onias, he hated wickedness, man. He hated evil. He hated wickedness, iniquity. You have to hate iniquity and evil. The Lord said the righteous will do that. Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of, see what I want. 2nd Esdras chapter 16 in verse number 50. So shall righteousness hate iniquity. So if you're righteous, just like a lot of men were in the scriptures, man, Lot was vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. The groans, the yells, the unprofitable talk, the wickedness, the unjust dealings, the things he saw vexed his righteous soul from day to day. The same with Onias. Onias hated wickedness. He loved to see the increase of his people and the brethren and the things that were going on during that time. You have to have the mentality as Onias, man, and rule well through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Now, Onias, or the Onad, priests were a powerful, right, Jew, right, priestly family in the Hellenistic period. Descendants of Jerusalem, high priesthood. So when you actually go inside of Nehemiah and other things, all the way time of Joshua, when they're establishing these things, when you actually going into it, he comes right from the royal priesthood, known for a figure like Onias III, who resisted Hellenization, but was outed by his brother Jason. So he had a blood brother named Jason. Now, not to jump the gun, but we're going to get to it. Jason, he was an evil murderer, man. He hated his own brother. Now imagine the Most High put you where he put you, man. There's no account of Aaron squaring up with Moses, man, and stealing all of his authority from him, man. Everything was in order. The Most High has one man rule and another man rule. When Judas Maccabees ruled, that was his time. When Jonathan ruled, that was his time. When Simon ruled, that was his time. But you have men like Jason that love authority, dominance, dominion, right? Lust to be in charge. He undermined and tried to overthrow his own brother. This was around 175, right? When you actually going into the history to try to overthrow. It said the family story highlights internal conflicts, right? So you had during his time, he was of that royal line, but his spirit was of Satan. Just because you're an Israelite, just because you're in Hebrew doesn't mean you're a child of God, man. Remember, the Lord got on and rebuked those men, right, that were calling themselves, right, the chosen, the Israelites. He rebuked them in the book of John, the 8th chapter. And he literally called them the devil, man. I won't have to necessarily get it. I want to stay on point because there's a lot I want to touch on. But through the spirit, you're a child of God when you do the things of God. You're a son of Abraham when you do the things of Abraham, like Yahweh said, paraphrasing greatly. So his spirit, his mentality was wicked. It was evil. It was undermining. You can't have the spirit of Jason, during this time. Now, let me get this quick precept. Let's go to 2 Maccabees 4. And I want to start at 7. But after the death of Seleucus, when Antioch called Epiphanes, right, madman, right, one of God, right, and this is the devil too, took the kingdom. So really too, when you go inside of the history, Demetrius the first was supposed to have his reign, but Seleucus, he stole that and undermined it from Demetrius. It was a lot of rebelling, stealing the throne, murder, and rise of power and lust during the time of the Greek Empire, man. You can't just read Seleucus, Antiochus Epiphany. You have to know, was it the third? Was it the fourth? Was it the fifth? Who were under these men? You had Lassius, which was the governor, right? And under him, you had Apollonius, right? Seron, if I'm pronouncing that right, right? And under those men, you understand of Lysias, you had Gorgias, right? You had Nicanor. Those were his generals, right? As Antiochus, surnamed so-called Epiphanes, went to war. And he left him in charge governor. So when you go inside of this history, most I will be going to touch on, you want to understand it. It's nothing like reading and understanding. And these chapters are very long. So it'll be wise sometimes to read it 2 or 3 times. Who told you need to read 15 chapters? Man told you that, man. When you read to understand. Why are you reading to understand? So you can teach, so you can comprehend, so it can rest in your soul and your mind. Because at some point, what you're reading, you have to be ready to die for. If you forget and you don't really know who this was and what was his name and was he a Moabite, and you kind of get jammed up, you start sweating, right? You're going to get pushed in a position where you start questioning your faith. So you want to be able to resonate as much as you can, whether you have to read one chapter 3 or 4 times to understand the words of God. This is a part and vision of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. It says, took the kingdom, Jason, the brother of Onias, labored underhand to be priest. What does it mean underhand? Meaning sneakily, evilly. Behind closed doors, he was moving this way. While his brother didn't know about it, he was moving that way. He was secretly talking to the kings. He was secretly going behind his back. Why? Because of lust. Don't let lust and being in charge overthrow you, man. Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Sirach. Right? This is the book of Sirach, right? Chapter 7 and verse number 4. Seek not of the Lord preeminence. Preeminence is to be high, to be chosen, to be uplifted. Neither of the king the seat of honor. So you don't want to seek the seat of honor. You want to be placed in the seat of honor. See, the Most High is going to place you, if that be your lot, in a seat of honor. The seat of honor is your throne, your kingdom, your palace, your dominion, your lot, your glory. Let's jump down to verse number 13. Now, such was the height of Greek fashion, an increase of heathenistic manners. So the same way you start to learn the wicked ways of man, the same way you start to learn the wicked ways of the heathen. When you're around the heathens too close, you speak like them, you dress like them, you act like them, you move like them. Your thought process and mentality starts to move in a manner of an evil man. Let me get this quick precept. It says, thorns and snares are in the way of the forward, meaning the wicked. He that doeth keep his soul shall be far from them. So if you keep your soul from snares and traps, you'll keep your soul from Christmas, Halloween, New Year's, right? All of these fake, false, idol worshiping days. If you keeping your soul is what? Keeping your spirit, not letting blots and defilements and wickedness and witchcraft cleave unto you, man. You'll be far from those heathenistic manners. It says through the exceeding profaneness of Jason, that ungodly wretch and no high priest. Why is he called no high priest? Because he stole the priesthood, man. Just because Esau put you in a spirit of power doesn't mean that that power is magnified and honored by the Most High God, man. You could be called the president. You be called the priest, the noble, the king. Those are titles by man. The Most High called you a prophet. The Most High called you an apostle, man. The Most High called you a servant. These are the things the Lord gave you. It says, ungodly wretch, and no high priest. That the priests had no courage to serve anymore at the altar. So it was a spirit going around at that time where nobody had the courage and the mentality to serve anymore at the altar, man. They took away the spirit thereof. It said, and despising the temple. During these days, they were despising the temple. So, too, in the spirit of the Maccabees, you have to also think about the rebuilding, how Judas and these men had to replace those priests with blameless conversation. Men that had pleasure in the law. When you read First Maccabees, the 4th chapter, because these men didn't have pleasure in the law. They despised the work and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. So they neglected the Lord for lust and money. Now, after Onias III, his brother Jason became high priest of Israel around 175 BCE, appointed by the Seleucid king Antiochus IV. Now, Antiochus IV, right, surname Epiphanes, he put Jason in charge for one reason and one reason only, man. So first and foremost, take away the righteousness of Onias III in the reign of righteousness and things prospering in the hand of the Most High, but to have a puppet and a demon, right, to Hellenize all of Judea, man. Because if it's one thing about a Negro, man, he's going to listen to other fellow Negroes. That's why you have these puppet masters, man. These Martin Luther Kings, right? These men of no honor that really are against the agenda of the Most High God, man. The Lord never said join hand in hand. The Lord never said to be a governor, to vote for that man in that city, that he's going to make a change. So he set him up really to gather intel so he could play both sides of the fence. It says, through Jason was soon replaced by another brother, Menelaus. Now, Jason wasn't doing enough wickedness in bringing the demise on Judea by the Hellenistic spirit of the Greek culture, so he got replaced by Menelaus. Now, I want to touch on that too. It says, after Jason, Menelaus took the priesthood, bribing King Antiochus the 4th Epiphanes to dispose Jason by offering more money, man. This is a lust about power. I thought the priesthood was supposed to be willingly offering. Doesn't it say that in Leviticus 1 and 3? Doesn't it say that in the book? Let me get this quick precept. You have to willingly offer yourself. These men were thirsty for money. So when you read about these wicked men and these spirits that they were in, they were off. So like, I don't want to get too many precepts. I'm going to stay in Maccabees. Not only did he do that, he wasn't even of the royal line to even be a priest. Let's get the mighty book of 2 Maccabees 4 and 35. Wherefore Menelaus, taking Andronicus' part, prayed him to get Onias into his hands. That's wicked. Who being persuaded thereunto, and coming to Onias in deceit, gave him his right hand with others, and those he were suspected by him, yet persuaded he him to come forth of the sanctuary, whom forthwith he shut up without regard of justice. So he didn't have no justice. He didn't have no spirit of, righteousness. For the which cause, not only the Jews, but mainly also of other nations, took great indignation and were much grieved for the unjust murder of the man. Check this out. And when the king was come again for the place about Sicilia, the Jews that were in the city and certain of the Greeks that abhorred the fact also complained because Onias was slain without cause. So they're complaining. What's going on? But Menelaus is behind this, man. Wicked men are behind wicked things that go on in the dark, man. Don't think certain men are overthrown, killed, destroyed, and nobody knows about it. It's always a spy somewhere in the nation, man. Could be a spy in a camp right now. A spy may be watching this, man. Don't trust everybody. The Lord said the fruit declared the tree have been dressed. You can't praise a man unless you hear him speak. He is honored by his words, man, his actions, his spirit. You have to watch him. Right, let me get this quick precept. Let's go to 2 Maccabees 13 in verse number 3. It says, Menelaus also joined himself with them. Who is the them? Let's start at verse number 2. It says, with him Lysias, his protector and ruler of his affairs, having either of them Grecian power of footmen and 110,000 and horsemen 5,000 and 300 and elephants 220 and 300 chariots armed with hooks. So what did Menelaus do? He lusted and saw the power, man. He saw the white man's power. He saw the Greek evolution, the uprising. He wanted a piece of that. He wanted money. He wanted power. He wanted authority. Don't be like these men. It says Menelaus also joined himself with them, and with great dissimulation encouraged Antiochus, not for the safeguard of the country, but because he thought to have been made governor, man. So you're not doing this for the country, man. You don't care about the safeguard of the country. You're solely doing this to become governor. That's wicked, man. When did the Lord say become the governor? All men become governors. It's not in the Bible, man. Let me get this quick precept. Let's get James chapter 3. The Heavenly Father never told men to be the governors. Every man alive must become a governor. It says, my brethren, be not many masters. So if you got an itch to be an authority, to rule, to declare, you got to check your spirit, man. Because that may not be a spirit of the Most High. Knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. And he didn't count the cost. You know what he counted? Lust. His lust and money, he counted. Now, going into Menelaus, it says high priest from 171 about to 161 BC, successor of Jason, the brother of Onias III. The sources are divided as his origin. According to 2 Maccabees, he belonged to the tribe of Benjamin. Right? Now, really going into it, said he descends from the tribe of Benjamin. Now, I want to get this quick precept. Let's see. So I can bear with me. This is the book of 2 Maccabees 4 and 23. 3 years after Jason sent Menelaus. So Jason was an authority that he stole for 3 years. After the 3 years, Antiochus, he set who? Menelaus in charge. Again, this is a wicked demon puppeting the spirit of Israel. And you have to watch and keep watching. There's a lot of people that are teachers out here now, maybe sent by government agents, maybe sent to create doctrines, lies, to overthrow the people. You have to be wise. We're living in the last days, man. Everybody's suspicious. You got to watch everything. Everything's on trial. It says 4, said Simon's brother to bear the money unto the king and to put him in mind of certain necessary matters. What do you mean to put him in mind? What do these devils have to know about anything? What do he have to be put in mind to know, man? Unless you're giving up secrets. Let's go to the book of 2 Maccabees 3, and I'm going to start at verse 4. Now, I just said that Menelaus was the brother of Simon. This is the book of 2 Maccabees 3 and 4. But when Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, who was made governor of the temple, fell out with the high priest about disorder in the city. So let's weigh this in the balance. You got your brother beefing with the high priest, and then you got your brother, Menelaus. Who do you think backdoored him and slid him in the door, man? Simon. Because he was made governor. So this is the wicked plot of the kingdom being all jacked up, man. All switched around. All manipulated, all overthrown. It says, but one Simon of the tribe of Benjamin, he's not even of the royal priesthood that should have even been in high priest to begin with, man. That's like a Judite saying, you know what? Right? 2,000 years ago, I'm going to be the high priest. I'm a Nessite, man. An Ephraimite. You might as well come from a tribe of Naphtali, man. And come out of nowhere and just say, you know what? I'm going to be the high priest. Fell out with the high priest, about disorder in the city. See that? So you got different things going on behind closed doors that's going on during this time. Now, I want to get this and read the rest of this. He belonged to the tribe of Benjamin and was the brother of the Simon who had denounced Onias III. So he was the governor. He denounced Onias III, which Jason slid in, that Antiochus removed, and all the intuition of Simon and Menelaus came into prize because he got him in there through money, greed, and deceit. Now you have the royal lineage, right, of the Hasmonean kingdom and dynasty, from Mattathias to John to Simon to Judas to Eleazar and to Jonathan. And I wanted to touch on these men in his history because this is very important why all these things are going on, because the kingdom is being switched right before your eyes. Let me get this quick precept. Now, when righteousness is in authority, the kingdom prospers. But when wickedness and evil is going on, the kingdom is switched. Let me get this quick precept. It's the book of Sirach, chapter 10 and verse 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got him by the sea, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. And the Lord will translate the kingdom. From the time of Mattathias' righteousness to all of his sons, to Judas, right, to John Hyrcanus, really to Aristobulus II and John Hyrcanus II. I don't want to jump the gun, but you had the wars during this time, which was the kingdom of the Maccabees going to war in Jericho, right? Like I said, I don't want to jump the gun, which had men come into enterprise, right? And the kingdom got switched. We're going to touch on that most I will, right? Now, I want to get this real fast. You got John Hyrcanus. Salaki, bear with me. Now, John Hyrcanus from 175 to 104 BCE was a powerful Hasmonean high priest and ruler of Judea, known for his expanding, right, of the territory by conquering Idumea and Samaria. Now, again, this is the line when you actually going into John Hyrcanus, right? What did he do? He expanded, right, the territory during this time. Why is this important? Because he really took down, right, all the temple of the Samaritans. Why is that important? Because the temple of the Samaritans were going off and they were worshiping, right, not in Jerusalem, but they were worshiping in Mount Ebal. Now, I want to dive into this. Just to touch up on these men, their spirits, what they've done, their history. You want to know the attributes of these men. You got to know why Jason was off, how the kingdom switched. You understand the Menelaus. You have to know why these things happen, what these things mean. It says the Hasmonean rule, John Hyrcanus, deceptively destroyed the Samaritan temple in Mount Gizrim. Salaki, Mount Gizrim. You had Mount Ebal, you had Mount Gizrim. Right, Mount Ebal is where you had the curses. Mount Gizrim is where you had the blessings. Right, Deuteronomy chapter 27. Now they did that because they worshiped toward that mount, thinking and perceiving in their mind that, you know what, this is where the Most High is. When the Most High said his name in Jerusalem, and John knew that. That's why the Lord said in the book of John, we don't have to necessarily get it, but you worship, you know not what. Because that Samaritan woman, she didn't know what she worshiped. When you actually go, let me get this real fast. That's why the beef and the war was so heavy between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. This is verse 3, John 4 and 3. He left Judea, talking about the Lord, and departed into Galilee. And he must need, right, go through Samaria. So as he's in Samaria, right, where does he go? He goes to the well. And when you go into the history, that was what a lot of scholars will call the same well that Jacob, you know, was in. I did a breakdown on it. Most High willing, the brothers could go check that out. You know, we're not going to go in-depth breakdown on it. But I just want to get this quick point in verse 9, all the way down. It says, then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou being a Jew askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealing with the Samaritans. Right? There was war breaking out. John Hyrcanus, he tore down the temples because, again, they were worshiping in Mount Gizrim, and they set their temples there. Let me see if I got any more on that. I'm about to pour that up. It says the Mount Gizrim temple, right, was an ancient Samaritan center of worship located on Mount Gizrim. So the Most High never said to locate in Mount Gizrim, huh? That was for that moment in time where the blessings were given in the book of Deuteronomy. Let's go to that real fast. In the mighty book of Deuteronomy. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 27. For brothers that may not know. It's the mighty book of Deuteronomy, right? Chapter 27, verse 12. These shall stand upon Mount Gizrim to bless the people. So they were carnal, and they went back to that mountain to receive that blessing in their mind. So as the Jews went toward Jerusalem, knowing what they worship, toward the east, toward where the Lord set his name, the Samaritans, they went in another direction. So it's like they had two different gods. You know, if you have ears to hear. One was worshipped that wasn't there upon a mount the Lord never said to be, and one set his name as his throne where to be. So as the Lord is, correcting this woman, so like I just deleted it. I'm gonna go back to it in John. Right, ye worship, you know not what, because she doesn't know what she actually worshiped. So that's deep tides and war, confusion, splits. Let me get this last point at verse 20. Our fathers worshipped in his mountain. That's what the Lord said, man. Right? So like I'm gonna start at 19. That's what the woman said. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in his mountain. Right? Again, going into Jacob, because Jacob worshipped around that mountain. Let me see if I can pull that up. Yeah, like I said, we're not going to turn this into an in-depth break. I got a lot I want to dive into. But I mean, you look up the history, that's what Jacob was. Upon that mount. You said, look, man, that's what Jacob was, man. In Genesis 35, Jacob set a pillar. Right? He poured out a drink offering. So she's thinking she's giving some type of breakdown. Our fathers worshipped in his mountain, in his place. It's our fathers worship in his mountain. And ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. So she's thinking about Jacob. I mean, her mind is, she just doesn't really know what's going on. Yahweh shall say for to her, woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor at Jerusalem worship the Father. So he's speaking in the spirit because we're not in Jerusalem. So it really doesn't matter the place because we're going to all come together throughout the four corners of the earth, worshiping in spirit and in truth. So although she was wrong and she worships, not what, he's still giving her an opportunity to be back in. If you have ears to hear, ye worship, not what. We know what we worship for salvation is of the Jews, meaning through the Jews, meaning follow the Jews. But going back to it. So John Hyrcanus, again, he destroyed the temple of the Samaritans and established Judea as a significant regional power, marking a peak for the Hasmonean dynasty, right? When you're actually going into it, man. Right? Let's go to this quick point so I can bear with me. Let me get this quick precept. Let's go to First Maccabees. Let's go to First Maccabees chapter 2 and verse number 1. So I'm going to touch on the sons and the spirits that they had righteously that were given them to by the Lord. The Most High gave them these spirits. So you have John, right? Simon, Judas, Eleazar, and Jonathan. We can read about that in the book of First Maccabees, chapter 2 and verse 1. I'm going to start at 2. It says, and he had 5 sons, Jonathan called Cadius, Simon called Thaddeus, Judas, who was called Maccabees, the hammer, Eleazar called Ephraim, and Jonathan, whose surname is Alphas. Well, let's go to the mighty book of, let's see what I want. First Maccabees, chapter 13. Let's go to First Maccabees, chapter 13. Now, all these men in depthly weren't touched on to a T, but I want to touch on those men that were brought up a lot with, and chiefly Simon. Man. Now, when you read First Maccabees, the 13th chapter, and you perceive that Judas had already died, Jonathan had fell asleep, and Simon is standing, taking the lead and the control during this time to lead his people in the nation. Huh? Now, any coward or any man that was scared or any man that could make 1,000 excuses, which he could, he would have fled, man. Look, my father fell asleep. Eleazar, he gave his life, man, threshing under an elephant, and I'm the last one standing down there, man. It says, now when Simon heard that Tryphon had gathered together a great host to invade the land of Judea to destroy it, and saw the people that was great and trembling in fear. And our people were in fear. They were scared. They didn't know what was going on. They saw Jonathan, he fell asleep. Judas, he fell asleep. Eleazar, I don't know if we should be doing this. Their hearts trembling. They saw the great host and went up to Jerusalem and gathered the people together and gave them exhortation. Exhortation is one of the most beautifulest things you could give a brother, man. You can give a brother a gift. You could help a brother. You could help him move. Right? You can play basketball with the brother. Y'all work out together. Y'all can read together. But it ain't nothing like exhortation when somebody down, man. Exhortation keep marriages together. Exhortation has you to be ready to die for the Lord. Exhortation goes so far that it picks you up when you're about to fall out the truth, man. Exhortation keeps you close to Yahweh. And these men that were trembling at this time, he gave them exhortation, saying, ye yourselves know what great things I and my brethren and my father's house have done for the laws. And it's like in the sanctuary, the battles also and the troubles which we have seen. So we've seen all of the things that we have done. By reason whereof all my brethren are slain for Israel's sake, and I am left alone, man. I can't imagine that, man. For brothers that do have brothers physically, blood brothers, imagine if they all were slain. You have to know in the back of your mind, I'm gonna have to give my life. I'm next, man. Any man would have that thought process. I don't know how long, this may be, man. I could be next. He said, now, therefore, be it far from me that I should spare my own life at any time of trouble, for I am no better than my brother. He said, look, I'm not better than my brother. Whatever my brethren said, whatever my brother did, I'm going to do. So he had a courageous spirit. He picked up the pieces, man. Right? You have Judas Maccabees. Now, Judas Maccabees, he was courageous also. He was a lion, a warrior, a general, a leader. It's the book of First Maccabees, chapter 3, and verse number 1. Now, when Mattathias fell asleep, he was the first one that rose up. And he was a captain over his people. Then Judas, called Maccabees, rose up in his stead. And all his brethren helped him. And so did all they that held his father. And they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel. So he got his people great honor and put on a breastplate as a giant and girt his warlike harness about him. And he made battles protecting the host with the sword, man. This is beautiful. Why? Because when you look at this spiritually, you could get great honor putting on a breastplate and fighting for your people, man. Who else is going to stand up? Now, in actuality, you're marked on what they would say. I forgot what they called it in police, the boardroom. They put all of the dots and they connect them. They got the guy up top, the guy right here, the guy all the way to the bottom. They do that with drug dealers, RICO cases, different things like that. In the truth, you have camp leaders. You have men that teach. You have leaders of the people put up, man. All you brothers that want to lead so bad and want to reach the people and want to be an example, just know that Esau knows exactly who you are. Now, when time to crack down in these laws of sedition, punishable by death, and chargeable for up to 20 years for them throwing you in prison, them concentration camps. Just know what you're doing this for, man. He girt himself up, man. He protected himself and got ready for war. You have to do that spiritually, man. There's so many spirits that try to overtake you, especially when righteousness is on the earth, man. Let a feast day be going on. Passover, the new moon, the Sabbath day. Anything going on of righteousness, and not just righteousness, just period. Satan hunts your stuff to overthrow you. It says, in his acts, he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp roaring for the prey. For he pursued the wicked and sought them out and burned up those that vexed his people. So he had a courageous spirit of might and honor, right? I want to touch on Eleazar. Real quick, I just want to touch on at least, what's written on the brothers. And they all had a courageous spirit. Then I want to dive into the kings, right, that ruled during that time, and who these men were, and how that affects during the war. Let's go to the mighty book of First Maccabees, right, chapter 6. Let's go to the mighty book of First Maccabees, right, chapter 6. And I'm going to start at verse number 43. It says, Eleazar, also surnamed Sanavern, perceiving that one of the beasts armed with royal harness was higher than all the rest, and supposing that the king was upon him. So he had vision, he had might, he had strength. Put himself in jeopardy, man. I don't know about brothers, but to perceive a heathen is upon the elephant and say, you know what? We got to get this king so bad. We got to go to war and win so bad that I'm going to risk my life, man. Yahweh gave him life. Right, risked his life, rather. Eleazar risked his life. Simon risked his life. Judas. Real warriors, they risk their life when they go to war. You're risking your life every single time you fight Satan, man. You may not make it out of this thing. You may fall back in the world. See, when you go to war, any casualty can happen. You don't know what's going to happen when you put on your breastplate and you go out there for war, man. You may not make it home. That's why in Deuteronomy 20, if you're scared, you got to go back home. Let that spirit rest on the rest of the camp. So he put himself in jeopardy to the end he might deliver his people and get him a perpetual name. Wherefore he ran upon him courageously through the midst of the battle, slain on the right hand and on the left. So he was like a madman. He had a destination he had to reach. And anything in his way, he was moving it out, slashing on the right and slashing on the left. So that they were divided from him on both sides. Meaning he made a pathway of bloody men as he ran to the elephant. Which done, he crept under the elephant. And I don't know about brothers, but that's not easy to do. So he was very strategic in war, and he crept under and thrust him under and slew him, whereupon the elephant fell down upon him, and there he died, man. So he got squished alive. And he did that not only for his brethren in the nation, for you to read today, for you to have strength and remember these accounts, man. This is very, very important. Let me get Jonathan, right? We touched on real fast. I don't want to jump the gun. Simon, read about John, Judas, Eleazar. Now I want to touch real fast on Jonathan. Let's go to First Maccabees chapter 9, verse 31. Upon this, Jonathan took the governance upon him at that time and rose up instead of his brother Judas, man. He could have been a coward. But when one brother stop and or fall asleep or flee or whatever, the next man got to be up, man. Next man up mentality. So he had vision as a leader. And that's the spirit he moved in, man. It says, then Jonathan and Simon, his brother, and all that were with him, perceiving that, fled into the wilderness of thence and pitched their tents by the water of Pool Aphes. Right? Now I want to get this account on Jonathan. Now, Jonathan also, he kept watch. Keeping watch is very important, man. Because at any given time, these demons can slay you. Let's go to, I mean, this whole thing is crazy. I'm going to start at 35. Really, when you read all the way down, this whole thing is kind of crazy. Right, I'm going to start at 35. Right? After this came Jonathan home again and calling the elders. So he got counsel. They all came together. Of the people, he consulted with them about the building of strongholds in Judea. Now, what should we do? How tall should that be? How many bricks? Get those men and set them up by 10s and set them up by 50s. He had a mentality as a general and a king, man. But also he got counsel. And making the walls of Jerusalem higher and raising a great mount between the tower of the city for to separate it from the city, that so it might be alone, that men might neither sell nor buy in it, right? So I'm going to dive down. I mean, this whole thing is kind of crazy. Let me see what I want. Verse. Let me see what I want. I don't want to read too much. I'm going to have to come back to this account. Salaki, bear with me. 27, that's what I want. This is verse 27. Wherefore, so soon as the sun was down, and we know that the sun represents what? Light, protection, vision, spiritually. The sun is up, you can see. You can perceive who hiding over there. You can see a shadow. You can see what's going on. Now, when the sun goes down spiritually, what does that mean, man? Death is on the rise. Satan is creeping. Demons, spirits, lies, vanity, iniquity, evildoers come out, man. Sin says where? For as soon as the sun was down, Jonathan commanded his men to watch. So as soon as it gets what the world would call cold outside, man, you got to keep watch. Keeping watch isn't just watching for 5 minutes. You have to know that with Satan. Know his wiles, his craftiness. So as soon as the sun went down, he commanded men to keep watch and to be in arms all the night long, that they may be ready to fight, man. So we had them stay up all night long, man. Imagine staying up all night long right now. How many people will fall asleep? Look at the apostles. They fell asleep. The Lord said, what, you cannot watch with me for 1 hour, man? So he commanded those men to watch, because if they fell asleep, that means a death to the city, the death to the children, the death to the wives, the death to the family, the death to the elders. That's how important it is to be vigilant, man. Vigilant comes with being a leader. Being a leader comes with responsibility, determination. A lot of people want that position, but don't want to do the things that position requires. Everybody want that salary of $200,000 a year, man. $300,000 a year, $100,000 a year. But the things you have to do to obtain it and keep it, a lot of people will be fired or aren't fit to meet the criteria of that position. It says that all the night long they may be ready to fight. Also, he sent to round about the host, right? So, I mean, he kept them ready for battle. He kept them in the formation, and he kept them to watch. That's very important, right? Now, I'm going to switch it up a little bit through the spirit. Let me see. That's what I got. Okay, let's go to now from John Hyrcanus, you have Salome Alexandria, which means Shalom, which means peace, which was a reigning queen of Judea, right? Well, a woman so-called Rome. You had Athelia, you had Shalom, right? Shalom, right? Which is a woman, queen of Judea, around 76, right? That's 67 BCE. Following his line, you have Mattathias, right? All of the men of righteousness out of Simon, right? Mattathias, Judas, John Hyrcanus, Aristobulus I, Shalom, Alexandria, Janus, Antigonus, and Absalom. Now, out of Shalom, right? Alexandria, Janus, came Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II. This is very important, right? Let's dive into why, right? So like, let's not jump the gun. It says, peace of Zion and 141, that 67 BC was a ranked queen of Judea, one of the only 3 women in Jew historical tradition to rule over the country, and the other 2 being Deborah and Athaliah. I wouldn't necessarily say Deborah reigned, right? She judged Israel and rose up in a time where there was no king, but nevertheless was written of treason of this wicked woman. And Salome in history that rose up, this is very vital to know, right? You had Salome Alexandria, queen of Judea, was married to 2 Hasmonean rulers, Aristobulus I, after his death, to his brother Alexander Georgianus, she succeeded as queen and reigned from, we just read it, right? Now, during that time of their children, you had war. Again, their children, you had Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus I. Now, why are they going to war? They're reigning for power, for authority. And this is sad because our people are in a state where they want to rule so bad, man. Everybody want to be the top camp, the top leader. Jacob slit their own brother's throat, man. Look at Jason. Look at Onias III, man. Look at Menelaus. Look at Rhodocus. Look at these men, man. Look at Alchemist. Look at one that overthrew his own countrymen to do them much harm in First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. Was that 41-ish? I knocked the dust off this precept. Salaki, bear with me. Salaki, maybe the 1st chapter. 1 and 40. Let's see. To knock the dust off this precept. Lord willing, I could come back to this precept. Thought it was First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter. We ain't gonna have these problems in the kingdom, right? Let me see what I'm looking for. Might be the 3rd chapter. Bear with me. Yeah, I might have to just come back to this precept. Most I willing, right? Brothers know that precept, they could throw it in the chat. If brothers know that precept, they could throw it in the chat. This First Maccabees. Let's see. 1 and 41. I thought I just said that. I thought I just looked at it. That's not what I want. So lucky, bear with me. Okay, 7. First Maccabees 7. That's what I want. All praise to the Most High. All right, let me get this quick precept in First Maccabees chapter 7. It's First Maccabees chapter 7. I'm going to start at 13. Right? It says, I'm going to start at 12. Then did there assemble unto alchemists and Bacchides a company of scribes, right, require justice. Now the Assyrians were the first amongst the children of Israel that saw peace of them, right? And of course, why wouldn't you want to seek peace of your own brethren, your own countrymen, people that love you, man? That's how much this rise of power and betrayal was during this time. For say they, one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron is come, right, with this army, he will do us no wrong. He said, you know what? No wrong is going to come upon you, man. He's not going to do us any wrong. So he spake unto them peaceably and swore unto them, saying, we will procure the harm neither of you nor your friends. And what did he do, man? He listened to all of the words, right? But you can't listen to men like alchemists that work for the heathen to overthrow you. and remove you out of the kingdom and position that you're in. So you got to watch these men. And the same with Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II. They both warred for power, man. Now it says the wars between Hyrcanus II and Aristobulus II, right, 67, 63 BCE, were the Hasmonean civil war for the throne of Judea, man. Sparked by Aristobulus asserting the high priesthood and throne from his older brother Hyrcanus after their mother's death, leading to battles near Jericho. So, I mean, actually, when you go into history, right, I believe Ptolemy, if I'm not Slakia. Let me get this history. Grab this real fast. Pompeii. Yeah, that's what I wanted. It says the Hasmonean's brothers, John Hyrcanus and Aristobulus II, involved Roman generals in the Civil War. See, that was your first mistake. Now, again, the Most High gave the righteous seed, right, of the priesthood during his time to reign. This is all of the Most High. And the Most High set this up. So what did you do? You got the heathen involved. Now, when the heathen got involved in these wars, that's when the kingdom started to switch over to the Romans, because the Romans got involved and they understood the position and power and authority that they were given during this time under the Maccabean revolt. Let me go back to that. Right? Salaki, what was I? Right? The Civil War, primarily Pompey the Great, who ultimately conquered Jerusalem in 63 BCE, ending the Jew right independence by favoring John Hyrcanus II as high priest and establishing Roman client rule. Right? It's off. That's wicked. Right? And Mark Antony, he was involved too, dealing with Aristobulus II and rebellion. Got to stop joining these alliances, trusting in these heathens, because all it does is overthrow the position. Now, again, it's called the Hasmonean Civil War. Secession war fought in Judea between Shalom, Alexandria's sons, over Hasmonean crown, right? And Hyrcanus was backed by Antipater. Right? He's backed by Antipater. That was Herod's father. And the Nicotians, right? Those were your Arabs, right? And all this is history. This was all going down during that time. So through greed, power, and positions being switched, they got taken down. We'll read this real fast. The Hasmonean dynasty had been established after the Maccabean revolt and had gained independence from the Seleucid Empire. Again, why the Seleucid Empire? Because his reign stretched right from the four generals under Alexander the Great, right during that time, to conquer that landmass: Seleucus, Ptolemy, Cassander, and Lycomachus. Right, we actually going into it. After which it became powerful region in the kingdom. The kingdom reached its great extent during the reigns of Alexander Genitus. Right, again, the husband of Salome. Like I said, we're not going to read this whole thing. Now you have these heathens that are set up. Again, I wanted to touch on this history. You have Alexander the Great, right, which is in the Bible. Let me get this real fast. Shalaki. Let's go to First Maccabees chapter 1. Start at 1. And it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, right, the Greek, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and Medes, that reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So he was the first over Greece and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. I believe he reigned for what, 12 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, some say 13, other sources say 12. It says Alexander the Great ruled as king of Macedonia for about 13 years, from 336 BCE until his death in 323, creating one of the largest empires of the ancient world in a short time, stretching from Greece all the way to India. So as this man, came into power and started to destroy and conquer all different regions of Macedonia, Asia Minor, Egypt, Mesopotamia, right, during that region, right, all the way from parts, right, of Arian, right, during the Persian Gulf and the Arabian Sea, around that region, he fell sick and he gave up the ghost. A lot would say through AIDS, syphilis, or some wicked disease through his sexual lust of him being in the closet. Now, when these things, see, the scriptures say 12 years. That's what the Lord said. But this First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants, right, bare ruled everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did the sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. So when the Greeks came into power, evils were multiplied in the earth. Right? You had Ptolemy, right? One of the 4 generals that were set up, Soter, and his descendants, the Ptolemaic dynasty, primarily ruled Egypt, establishing a Greek kingdom thereafter Alexander the Great's death. But their realm also included territories like Cyrenia, modern Libya, parts of Palestine, Judea, and the island of Cyprus, right? Going into that time. So this was what he ruled, the Pope kingdom. You could read about that in First Maccabees, the first chapter, 1 and 20. When Antiochus, right, surname Epiphanes, he went to war, right? Antiochus III. Now let's go to the scriptures. Let's go to First Maccabees 1 and 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surname Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king. So Antiochus the king is Antiochus III. A root coming out of him is Antiochus IV, surname Epiphanes, madman. It says, who had been in hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. And he went to war with Ptolemy. Again, why did he go to war? Why is this all important? Because this was his region, right next, right, to Judea, Jerusalem, right next to the Holy Land. That's why he proudly went into Egypt, as the scriptures say, thinking to advance his empire and to stretch his kingdom. Right? Let me read that. Like I said, I'm not going to read too much. I'm going to read 16. Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt. He wanted more land, that he might have dominion of the 2 realms. So he had his realm, and then Ptolemy had his realm. Let's go back to it. So from Ptolemy, you have Seleucus, the first Nicator, which ruled, right, Hellenistic empire, which is known as the Seleucid Empire, which at its height covered modern-day Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and parts of Central Asia. Essentially, the eastern lands of Alexander the Great former empire, established his kingdom after Alexander's death, right? Centering it in Syria and Persia. So he became the king primarily over Asia Minor during that region. You have Cassander, right? Ruled primarily Macedonia, which was that far left region of Greece from 305 to 297 BCE, and was the de facto ruler of much southern Greece, right from 317 BCE, establishing himself as a major power after Alexander the Great's death during the Wars of the Diadochi, right? Which is the wars of power and kingdoms and territory, also known as the Syrian Wars, right? You also had a man that a lot of people would look at, Antigonus. Now, Antigonus isn't classified as one of the four, right, generals, but he also had land also. So after Lycomachus, right, I have him, but he's not one of the four, but he still ruled a part of land during that time, and is a notable figure to be mentioned. You have Lycomachus, ruled significantly territories as one of Alexander the Great's successors, primarily Thrace, Asia Minor, and eventually Macedonia, right? And different parts, of Turkey. So you have Cassander, Lycomachus. You have a man named Antigonus. Again, he's not one of the four, but he did rule and have a lot of land in these wars. And he took down, I can't forget the devil's name. He was going to war, just like Seleucid Empire and the Ptolemy Empire. They were going head up. Antigonus, I believe I had that history report up too. I may not. He was going to war head up. So when all this was going on, it was a conflict of power. Who's going to come into power, man? Who's going to rule, right? Antigonus, right, the one-eyed, was a key Macedonian general under Alexander the Great, who became the most powerful of Alexander's successors, the Diadoches, after his death, establishing the Antigonus dynasty by conquering vast territories of Asia. Through his ambition, ultimately led to his downfall in the Battle of Ipsus in 301 BCE against his coalition of rivals, right? So we got put to death, man. So again, you have the Seleucian rulers. I'm going to touch on this. The first one, you have Seleucus I Nicator, followed a line of Greek kings in succession, including the prominent rulers, right? Antigonus the First, Antigonus the Second, Antiochus the First, Antiochus the Second, Antiochus the Third. Antiochus the Third is the one in the scriptures at First Maccabees 1 and 10. That's at the empire's height of taking down these wars during this time. Now, when you go into history, Antiochus the Third, he really allowed, so what, as they say, us to keep what they would call a monotheistic understanding of the priesthood. But Antiochus the Fourth, he came in like his name, as a madman, to uproar, overthrow everything. Yeah, Antiochus the Fourth, Epiphanes, and Demetrius the First Sudeter, eventually declining into civil wars, fragmentation, before falling to Rome, right? And Antiochus the Fifth, right, which was his child. I believe he was 10 years old when you go into history. And he was under Lysias, right, to be his so-called protection. This is Antiochus the Third, right, the Great. Antiochus restored much of the territory of the Seleucid Empire before suffering a serious setback toward the end of his reign and his war against the Roman Republic, declaring him the champion of the Greek freedom against Roman domination. Waged a 4-year war against the Romans, right, beginning in mainland Greece. So the Romans were coming into power. They would come into power, and they actually helped Ptolemy's fight against the Seleucid Empire also. Again, touching on this devil real quick, you have after Antiochus the Third, the Great, he died, his son Seleucus, right, Potator, ruled the Seleucid Empire, but was assassinated and succeeded by his younger brother Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, man. That's wicked. Again, when you go into this history, it was a lot of backdooring, a lot of fighting, a lot of killing, a lot of people uprising and asserting themselves in authority in war to overtake their own brothers. And again, they were all related. I believe Lysias was Antiochus's cousin, right? Let me get a couple quick precepts. Let's go to First Maccabees. Right, First Maccabees. Bear with me. Yeah, that's what I want. Second Maccabees, chapter 11 and verse number 1. Not long after this, Lysias, the king's protector and cousin. So he was the king's protector and he was his cousin. Again, these line of these kings, they were all related. And again, Demetrius was supposed to be the rightful king, but he later on got that dominion back in war. It says, let me prove, going into this real quick in First Maccabees. I believe that's the third chapter. First Maccabees chapter 3 in verse. So under Lysias, you had Apollonius. They got taken down by Judas Maccabees. He ravaged, took a sword, and then you had the war of Siron, the prince of the army of Syria. He got taken down. And I'm going to get to my point. So like I'm going to scroll down. These are long chapters through the spirit. Verse 32. So he left Lysias, a noble man, and one of the blood royal, to oversee the affairs of the king. Because when you go into history, Antiochus, he went out. I believe that was the Parthian War. I'm subject to be corrected. Where he had to leave him in charge, right? For him to oversee the affairs. That's why you read so much about this devil. Yes, King Seleucus the fourth Epiphanes and Seleucus Empire led a campaign against the Parthians in the eastern province toward the end of his reign, facing the recurrent Parthian kingdom that was threatened by the Seleucian territories in the east. So Antiochus the fourth marched his main army to confront them around 165. Around 164, that's when Judas Maccabees and they was kicking down doors, man. So when this devil left the fight with the Parthians and really going to this war, he left Lysias, what they will call a noble man, in charge. And again, he foresaw, because he was a blood royal, his cousin, those affairs. That's why you read a lot about this devil in the Maccabees. Right, let's go back to it. Not long after this, Lysias, the king protector and cousin, who was managed the affairs, took sore displeasure for the things that were done. Right? He went the hell off, man. Let's go to the mighty book of First Maccabees. Matter of fact, let's jump down to verse 35. Get another precept on that. Whatsoever Lysias, the king's cousin, had granted, therewith we also are well pleased. So again, Antiochus III, that was the height of the kingdom. After, you understand, Alexander the Great, and then you had his son that came into power, the fourth. During that time of them turning up and destroying Apollonius in one of the first wars, kicking that thing off, he was fighting with the Parthians, which Lysias was governed over that time and over that region. And again, under him, you had chief men like Nicanor, right, which was one of his generals. Let me get this quick precept. And Saron. Let's go to 2nd Maccabees, chapter 12. All right, it's a lot of precepts I want to really dive into. I started 1 and 2. When these covenants were made, Lysias went into the king, and the Jews were about their husbandry. But of the governors of the several places, Timotheus, Apollonius, the sons, Salakia for the pronunciation, Gaius and Herponius and Derpinum, and beside them Nicanor, the governor of Cyprus, would not suffer him to be quiet and live in peace. So these men were under him. And the men of Joppa also did such an ungodly deed. They prayed the Jews that dwelt amongst them to go with their wives and their children in their boats, which they had prepared, as though they had met them no hurt. Right? You won't read that account. That account is crazy. So, I mean, we're not going to necessarily touch on, too much of Nicanor, right? We're going to get on him later on. The destruction of Nicanor, man. There'll be many breakdowns going into his destruction and overtaking him through the spirit. But you had these chief men and these generals that were set up, right? This is the book of 2nd Maccabees 15. Then Nicanor and they that were with him came forward with trumpets and songs. But Judas and his company encountered the enemy with invocation and prayer. So when they came up to destroy the Jews and overtake them, right, what did Judas Maccabees do? He prayed. He stayed in the spirit. He was on fire, right? Let me get this quick precept. You also had a devil, too, that was under their reign called Gorgias. Matter of fact, let me get this quick precept. Let's see what I want. 38. Is this what I want? Let me get this first. 1st Maccabees 4. It's 1st Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 1. Then took Gorgias 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen and removed out of the camp by night. And again, when you read this account, he came up against Judas Maccabees. But I wanted to pull that precept I just pulled first in 1st Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 38. Then Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Dorcnius, and Nicanor, and Gorgias, mighty men of the king's friends. So he said, you know what? I'm going to set these men up, and I'm going to let these men be the generals. I'm going to let these men be the captains under Lysias, because Antiochus was gone. So they were the king's friends. This is all politics. So he set these men up. He had these men over this region, these men over this region, and they're all waging war. And Judas Maccabees and the Hasmonean, it took down all of them, man. And you had peace during the time. You understand? What we just went into the history of Salome, Alexandria, Shalom, right? Shalom, right? Until her son started to wage war. So all of the bloodshed that was wrought really brought peace until the trusting of the heathen and Pompey getting involved and the Romans getting involved and all hell breaking loose, man. Under Antipater and Herod the Great getting involved, right? Which the kingdom got switched as he took her for a wife, one of the last blood royals, right? Where we at with it? So I can bear with me. Okay, let's go to the mighty book of, see what I want, 2nd Maccabees. Let's get that. Let's go to 2nd Maccabees chapter 12. 2nd Maccabees chapter 12, and I want to start at verse 32. It says, after the feast called Pentecost, they went forth against Gorgias, the governor of Idumea. So these men, they were chief men. He was the governor of Idumea, who came out with 3,000 of foot and 400 horsemen. And it happened that in their fighting together, a few of the Jews were slain, man. That's horrible to hear, through the spirit, but it didn't say a large number, it said a few. At which time, Dortheus, one of Abetia's company, who was of horseback and of a strong man, was still upon Gorgias, and taking hold of his coat, drew him by force. And when he would have taken that cursed man alive, that's what Gorgias is called, man, a cursed man. Two, when you go into that history, it's like I don't want to jump on too many topics at the same time. Antiochus, he died in a strange land, man. When he got sick and the Most High overthrew him and killed him. Right? I want to get this other quick precept. This is precept I want to dive into. Let me see what I want. This is the book of 2 Maccabees. Now, power, again, by the so-called white man to lust was so great during this time in the Diocletian Wars that all of this became free land to overtake. It says, this is 2 Maccabees 13:4. But the King of Kings moved Antiochus' mind against the wicked wretch. And Lysias informed the king that this man was the cause of all mischief, right? Menelaus, and bringing him unto Berea and put him to death as the manner is in his place. Now there was in his place a tower of 50 cubits high, full of ashes, a round instrument which on every side hang down into the ashes, and whosoever was condemned scarchelage or had committed any other grievous crime, there did all men thrush him unto death. Such a death happened, that wicked man to die, not having much as burial in the earth, that most unjust, man. For as much as he had committed many sins about the altar, whose fire and ashes were holy, man. That's sick, man. These men were wicked. They say he had committed many sins round about the altar, man. And the Lord has shamed them to a shameful death. Look at an alchemist, his enterprise, and he was stopped with the palsy. So all of these men had a grievous death that the Most High, he took those men out. When you're actually going into it through the spirit, right? I wanted to get this other account of them lusting for power. And there's so many accounts. See if I could pull it up through the spirit. At least on 2 Maccabees. Let me get this real quick. So I could bear with me. Yeah, I found it. 2 Maccabees. This is what I want. 2 Maccabees 11. And I'm going to start at verse 4, right? This is going into Lysias. It says, now, it's like it not at all considering the power of God. So they didn't consider the wars that were wrought by Judas Maccabees, man. They didn't care. They didn't care about all of their army being destroyed. They actually went out to hire more soldiers. That at any chance, any moment that war were to arise, that they would pay them for necessary measures. That's how serious it was to win these wars. It says, not at all considering the power of God, but puffed up with his 10,000 footmen and his 1,000 horsemen and his 80 elephants. So all he could see was his army. That's the mind of the white man. All he could see is power. He could see his ships, his drones, his helicopters, his plane. He saw all of his army, his hundreds of thousands of footmen. He could see his missiles, these ICBM missiles. He could see these drones. He could see all these bazookas, these choppers, all this military warfare. And he starts to lust after it. And he sees all that and he gets puffed up and he doesn't consider the power of God. See, we're lowly. So it helps us to consider and look up for help and redemption, restitution. It says, so he came to Judea and drew near to Bethria, which was a strong town, but distant from Jerusalem about 5 furlongs, and he laid sore siege unto it. Now, when they that were with Maccabeus heard and besieged the host, they and all the people with lamentation and tears besought the Lord that he would send a good angel to deliver Israel. Man. Now, again, when you're actually going into this account, the Lord sent down angels to protect Judas Maccabees and the men of God as they fought. Not only did he send down angels, those angels wasn't just up in the heavens looking down, and they just zap people here and there. No, these angels was on earth, and they were right beside Judas Maccabees. And they blinded men as they fought and moved the Judas Maccabees in war, man. That's how serious the Most High was with Israel during this time, man. Right? Let me scroll down. Let me get this quick precept. And I want to get this real fast through the spirit, empower the Most High God, Yahweh, by Hashem Mashiach Malak Yahushua. All right, bear with me. Yeah, that's what I'm going to get. Let me read the rest of this, and I'm going to get that account. Then Maccabees himself, first of all, took weapons, exhortating, the other that they would jeopardize themselves together with him to help their brethren. So they went forth together with the willing mind, right? So that they went on fire, man. Now let's go to 2 Maccabees chapter 10, and I want to start at verse number 29. But when the battle waxed strong, there appeared unto the enemies from heaven 5 comely men on horsemen. Right? It's not literal. And it was a bunch of horsemen. They were all in the air and they're galloping. Right? You see snuff coming out, which is the fire. And then you see all of a big ring of fire. And then you look up and you see 5. No, the 5 comely horsemen upon horses are angels and the chariots of God. They're known as horses because horses go into battle. Horses don't fear anything. Horses are fierce and they don't back down and they charge in a battle, man. That's what the chariots are likened unto horses with bridles of gold. And 2 of them led the Jews and took Maccabees betwixt them, man. So it said 2 of them led the Jews. So you got angels on your right-hand side and an angel on your left-hand side, and Maccabees is fighting. Now, does Maccabees see the angel? Shalom. Right? And he starts speaking the Hebrew. Oh, how was the journey from the third heaven? No, he's in war right now, man. And they're moving his arm. They're moving his feet. They're having him to twist. Like when you watch football, they got spin moves. They jump over their opposition. They looking this way. They looking that way. They stiff arming. They in the mood. They in the zone. They moving. They got people, I don't know what it's called, where they take those swords. I think it's called adjusting. Where they just back and forth. And they kind of move, and you going forward, then you moving, and you going backwards. That's how Judas Maccabees was, man. Like Jake with the ball, with the handles. He moving swift. He going behind the back. He finger rolling. He just did a pass behind the back. He's fighting in war, and these angels are moving him and covered him on every side, man. So there was no way any harm could have happened to him until it was the set time for him to fall asleep. With their weapons, and kept them safe, but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies, man. So, I mean, how they defeated such great numbers, all glory and honor come from the Most High God, man. Not to take away from the strength of Maccabees, but you don't want to put our fathers above the Most High. Oh, David jumped over a wall. Well, who had David jump over a wall, man? Who had you to defeat your demons, man? Who made you fast the time you fasted? Who made you read that chapter? Who has you watching these videos? The Most High. And the Most High sends down angels to strengthen you, men to exhortate you, men to help you, push you, encourage you, guide you, lead you. It says, and their weapons and kept them safe, but shot arrows and lightnings against the enemies. So that being confounded with blindness and full of trouble, they were killed, man. Imagine that, man. These Edomites were sitting up there like this. Easy pickings, man. You could see why they were killing, 10 men to 1. They could swing a sword all they want. Duck it. Yink. Right, going right to they blind. They probably stabbing each other. I don't know what's going on, man. The angels are shooting down fiery darts. destroying 20 of them, 10 of them, 100 of them, as these men are going effortlessly through all these men. That's why these exhortation speeches is so mighty, because it was really wrought of faith. It wasn't wrought of their brute strength. No man, if he's not with the Most High, is going to kill, thousands of men to 800. It's really not possible. And even if it was possible, which is not, it's because the Most High wanted that to happen, man. All things come from the Most High. So again, looking at these accounts, you want to look at them spiritually. It's nothing that the Most High can't protect you from, blind people from. Your job may be trying to fire you, but the Lord blinded their eyes, man. Your husband may be trying to leave you. Your wife may be trying to, the Lord blinded their eyes, turn their heart around. The Lord turned the heart of Artaxerxes, right, to Esther, to have regard and love and show reverence and respect. So these demons and these spirits are on every side. Through the spirit and power of the Most High, he protects his chosen. You got to always remember that, man. Let me get this quick precept. All right. Let's go to 1 Maccabees, chapter 4. It's the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 4, and verse number 34, right? And it reads, it says, so they joined battle. There were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain. Now, when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judah's soldiers. What does it mean, the manliness of Judah's soldiers, man? Meaning they didn't care. They didn't give a damn. They was ready to die, man. Ain't nothing more scarier than to face somebody ready to die. They don't care. They're not regarding wisdom, knowledge, discretion. They want blood. They want to kill. Certain pumas and cats and lions and tigers, they're not regarding anything else. They looking for that neck, that jugular, that vein. They want blood, man. Sharks will swim 3, 4, 5, 10 miles to get you, man. They smell blood from a distance, miles away, and all they want is that blood, man. When they saw the spirit that was on Judah's soldiers, man, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, meaning it didn't matter. It says, and went to Antioch and gathered together a great company of strangers, having made his army greater than it was. He proposed to come again to Judea, man. He had to go hire men and soldiers to come against Judas Maccabees and the men of God. Then said Judas and his brethren, behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary, man. And that's beautiful. That's like a celebration too. When you defeat an enemy, you celebrate. You turn up, you have wine, you rejoice, but you also dedicate that win. You know, that trophy is always like given to, the general manager, the coach. They throw the water on the coach. They give you the game ball. We giving back and cleansing something they tore down to make gladness that the Most High had them to wrought, you understand, in victory. Let me get this quick precept in 2 Maccabees chapter 8. So being manly is a part of this feast day too, man. You got faith. You got understanding the power of the Most High and his strength. You got all of the heathens rising up for power, for bloodshed, the Diodici wars, slaying kings, stealing thrones, right? A rise in lust for power. All these things are going down. This is the book of 2 Maccabees, right? Chapter 8, and I'm going to start at 5. Now, when Maccabees had his company about him, he could not be withstood by the heathen, man. For the wrath of the Lord was turned into mercy. Therefore, he came at unawares and burnt up towns and cities, and got into his hands the most commodious places, and overcame and put to flight no small number of his enemies. So he was killing at one time hundreds of men, thousands of men, but specially took he the advantage of the night, such as privily attempts, and so much that the brute of his manliness was spread everywhere, man. Everywhere they was talking about the brutaliness of his manliness, man. That's crazy. Imagine you hear from a far land that this man will kill you. He's strong. He's fearless. You know, you come up with him with 20 and it's just him. He's not backing down. You're going to kind of scratch it. Who is this guy, man? What's going on? You know, I don't know what's going on, but, you know, I just think 20 soldiers dropped dead and he was coming up a hill. I don't even know how that happened. It was the angels. So when all this started to go, bro, you got to consider these things, man. Imagine walking on a battlefield. 18, 30, 50, 100 men drop dead. We just read the angels were shooting fiery darts at him. People was fainting. They were going to war. He wasn't getting touched. So when that spread abroad, they're like, man, who is this guy? So when Philip saw that his man increased, right, by little and little, and that things prospered with him still more and more, he wrote unto Ptolemy, the governor of Caesarea, and Phineas, right, to yield more aid to the king's affairs. Man, you got to take this thing more serious, man. This thing kind of getting real. These men, they rising up. This revolt is getting serious. Then, forthwith choosing Nicanor, the son of Ptolemy, one of his special friends, he sent him with no fewer than 20,000 of all nations under him to rule out the whole generation, to root out the whole generation of the Jews, man. Look how small Judea is. Now, Judas Maccabees, he had, you know, at the top, I believe, at least 10,000 men that were under him when you go into the history. So 10,000 men that are under you, and these are no fewer than 20,000, man. And some of those men died in battle with Judas Maccabees. He still was coming. He still was coming. He still was coming. I mean, the faith, the strength that they showed is impeccable. It's confounding. I'm perplexed that they're grabbing all these other nations, all these other forces to come up against the house of God. That's why we really going into it right through the spirit, right? How serious this feast day is, man. So Nicanor undertook to make so much money of the captive Jews as should defer the tribute of 2,000 talents, which the king was to pay the Romans, right? Right, but let me get this closing precept. Let me get two more and close out. It's the book of First Maccabees, chapter 9. And I'm going to start at verse 9. Right? Let me start at 8. This whole thing is crazy. Start at 7. It says, when Judas therefore saw that his host slipped away, and that's a very unhonorable thing, is flee, man. When your brother needs you, stand up for your brethren, man. Spiritually, financially, emotionally, right? Physically, whatever your brother needs, stand with him, man. It's going to come a time where you're going to need that same support. It says, and that the battle pressed upon him. Meaning these men, they was coming. They on horseback. They not fleeing away. They marching. Ain't no pause button. He was sore troubled in mind, huh? And much distress, for that he had no time to gather them, man. It's not always a time to have an in-depth conversation and exhortation, man. You either with me or not. You can't bank on exhortation all the time. Nevertheless, unto them that remain, he said, let us arise and go up against our enemies, if peradventure we may be able to fight with them. But they dehorted him, saying, we shall never be able. Let us now rather save our lives, and hereafter we will return with our brethren and fight against them, for we are but few. Then Judas said, God forbid that I should do this thing and flee from them. If our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor. That's exactly what he did, man. He got himself great honor. He didn't stain his honor. He has a perpetual name as a courageous man that fought for his nation and ruled the people in righteousness as a priest and set order in the temple of God. Right, let me get this closing precept. Let's go to the mighty book of Revelation, chapter 3 and verse number 2. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die. For I have not found thy works perfect before God. Remember, therefore, how thou hast received and heard, and hold fast, and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. So always keep watch, be vigilant, like Jonathan set his men in war to keep watch all night long. And make sure that you're on fire to the best of your ability, man. Whatever problems, demons, and things that are trying to overtake you and overthrow you, analyze, repent, remove, and pray, man. Stay in the spirit. Understand this is war. The same way our fathers were in war physically, this is the generation of faith. We're in war, right? But not physically, spiritually. So Most High willing, man, this was edifying. I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh. Shalom.